I started painting in high school back in 1986. At that time also I was exposed to modern painting. Growing up in a small town in Wisconsin, focus really never came around to abstract painting. So it wasn't until we got down to Milwaukee and I spotted this one particular painting. Holy crap, I didn't know we could actually do this. It fills up your whole brain at any time. I just wanted to paint. So I got a job and I started buying painting supplies. Yeah, that's kind of what's happening. I'm plowing forward. So you would end up going to the store and you'd end up popping off 60 bucks for this canvas back in the day, and that was a huge sum of money. And you would say, my God, this painting has to be stellar. And I have my substrates all taken care of. Usually, like I said, it takes 8 hours to do, 10 hours to do the panels, and then, another week, about 40 hours to build all the canvases and such. And then I'm good for a while. I have a good setup. I have a good run. I guess that's the process. Basically build all the crap, drag it down here and paint it. I work in a small metal fab shop in St. Paul. I do know that the job takes care of some things. You don't have to be concerned about making a painting that sells. And it's a great place and great people to work for. They let us pull out 40 and 410s, and so I get 3 days off. The 3 days off is when I paint. Studies. The studies are a way of exercising your voice, basically. Titles, words, lines, space. Those were set up for a efficient way to handle whatever the priorities are at the time that I'm looking for in a painting, or whatever I'm focused on at the time. It's to go after that. It's to be able to just rip them out and say, okay, this is where I want to get. I don't know how to get there. When you sit down with studies, you don't have to focus on a lot of the decisions that you have to make on a painting. That was essentially what they were set up for, was to be able to set aside a body of work that I could chase after when I have nothing in the tank. So I should be able to refer back to those when I get to be an old man and have no ideas in my head. And the problem with studies is that once you get rolling on them and you're figuring things out and you're making connections and things are really rolling, you have products that are working over here on the paper, and you're just ripping them out and things are just gaining momentum. Your brain's starting to solidify on your next run, and yeah, everything's gold. But the thing is that they're only working on that particular substrate. Everything changes once you get over to the other ones. I try to do things scientifically. Like I say, I do my studies over here, and yeah, you work out a lot of the issues you're having with space and components and plots and storylines and whatnot. So once you take all your study ideas and you move them over to the panels, that's where all of a sudden, we start throwing things into the fan again. Panels bring into a new item into the painting, which is the fields of color, and you don't really use those too much over in the studies, and it goes, totally different. Panels originally were a way for me to figure out big paintings, because I knew that the studies were failing, or they weren't failing, they weren't solving all the problems. Let's start digging deeper into it. And so yeah, I rip through those panels like mad. Do they do what you want them to do, or do they do something different? And once they start doing something different, you start chasing those threads. Is that you say, okay, yeah, let's abandon what we learned over there in the studies, and we're going to start chasing these threads. Panels basically are what they are. They're the workhorse. They're the middle child. Never really intended them for sale. And a canvas. What do we know about canvas? I love canvas. That's the whole point of painting. Part of the reason I love them so much is because they are so annoying. once you go from the panels to the canvas is a totally different gig. I don't even know why I do those things, because pretty much everything that I do in the studies and the panels fails. And you try things over there, and then you end up way off. And then also there are things that don't translate. You have space, maddening space. You have the intimidation of the big white canvas when it's staring at you. The scale of the paintings is another thing that becomes a problem once they start getting that large. Is that everything that you did over here on studies and panels, the weight of the lines doesn't transfer. You have to find another product that takes up that amount of space and the same scale relationship to convey your point and to keep the story moving. To a certain extent, that's all what painting is for me, is problem solving, is that I've, for some reason, just lock onto it, and you lock onto it in the realm of space and time. Things that don't annoy me are easily understood. You're happy with them. Things that do annoy you, it's easy to abandon, not ever pick them up again, because they're so freaking annoying that you just don't want to go after them. But once you're annoyed, you end up completely growing in a different path if you follow them. I think you grow exponentially when you're annoyed. When you're happy, you don't really grow as fast. So as a painter and wanting to grow as a painter, I find it satisfying to a certain extent to be annoyed. Of course, it's very frustrating, and you whine like a little baby all the time when you get home to your wife or whatever, other painters. You're just whining constantly. It's because you're constantly annoying yourself.
Yeah, okay, now something showed up, I don't know what it is, but I gotta find it, so this is the fun part, is I get to chase that out of it, Yeah, go figure. The one that coined me was a girl from Ipanema, right?
Hopefully by the time that you run out of canvases, you've gotten somewhere, and you've gotten sick of those things. Like I said, all those annoying things you figured out, and you're placated, right? And once you get to that placated state, you want to go back to figuring out something else. And usually during the painting process, you find problems that you need to go back and revisit, let's say, on the studies. So it's very secular that way. I just love canvas. If I had my druthers, I would just have a nonstop, endless supply of canvas, and I would bail on studies and panels and just go after canvas. But they're labor intensive, they're expensive. If you buy them already pre-stretched, then you're talking about a financial burden that's just unreal. Or at the rate that I tear through them. The building process is laborious. It's not terribly expensive, but it's very labor intensive, and so you don't get to focus on them as much as you'd like to, and that's okay, because that's part of it. You end up getting hungry for them. You're looking to get at those canvases. You just want to tear after them. I love the big canvases. I really do. As far as canvas paintings go, the bigger the better. Okay, what else about canvas? I got nothing else. The question is asked, how do you know when a painting is finished? A painting is finished when you reach the criteria that you set out to go for. Everything has a thread that can be followed, and you end up knowing how much of that thread you want to be visible. So yeah, you end up developing a voice while you do this, and when you... Okay, so we did all that work. I had to think for what, 20 minutes or something like that? Yeah, so I could put two white squares. When your voice is fulfilled, that's when you know the painting's done. Where did my titles come from? Well, they have a tendency to come from my little books here. Titles come from all sorts of places. I think once you find your voice, reveling in humanity, and when you start to realize that this is where your voice lies in within, you don't consciously make an effort every day to go out and find inspiration. It just finds you. And once you dial all these components in, it's relatively not that hard to be able to pick out parts of life and interactions or whatever, to focus on them and to find a place to say them. Like I said before, we have 8 stories, and that's basically what we're sitting with. So at this point in time, history's already said that a lot of people have said a lot of things. And you're not going to say anything terribly too new, so you have to micromanage, if you will, your voice to find the smaller portion that maybe didn't get as much focus on it. As far as storylines and titles go, you end up pinching from all around you. You pinch not only from movies, film, other art, songs, books, you name it. You're pinching also from snippets of conversations, of interactions, of daily time frames. So yeah, you're pinching from all sorts of places, but as a painter, you have to kind of try to put that away and let people find it. And when they do find it, they're pretty happy about it. So you do find out that, people generally, as much as they love a good story, they also love to catch a thief.